thank you for joining me for this webinar all about home learning. It's not just me, I'm also here with Claire Maybe, our education consultant. And what we want to do in this webinar session is talk to you about what we're branding home learning intermediate. That's the title we've gone with. But what that actually is about and what that means is we want to delve into some of the more interesting ways you can use Frog for home learning and prepare different things around that, rather than it being just the here's something to work through, here's your marks, and we're done. So we're going to be looking at all of the different tools that are in there, and I'll try to make sure we keep to a fast pace. But we'll be looking at reusing and sharing assignments and the mechanisms we've got for that. But then the other thing that I want to look at and show you is the idea of preparing homeworks in advance, so that rather than, again, here's all my resources, I'm going to pop them into Quick Assign and push them out, I'm actually going to structure pages around what I want the students to do and to work through and set everything in context and then use that. And of course, that is also something that I can then reuse and share. We're then going to go on. Claire's got some lovely tricks around tricks. Is that the right word, Claire? But she's got some lovely tricks around class interactions, as I've labeled it here, for assignments. So again, it's not necessarily all about the one-to-one between you and the student, and instead can actually involve students collaborating together and working together. And there's different ways we can do that. And then there's one thing that we never really talk about, and we should, but by looking at the other points that we'll have looked at, we'll be able to show you how you can then use rules to create additional instructions. And I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. Everything we're going to be talking about will not only be available as a recording as soon as possible after the webinar itself, but we'll also be covering everything we're covering is featured in tutorials that are on the community site, so you can work through those. And of course, you'll be able to contact us and we'll be answering questions. Lucy is joining us in the chat section, so if you have any questions as we go along, she'll be there answering that. And I've already had one question in, which I will hang on and cover at the end, but that somebody sent in advance. So I'll try to make sure we've got time for that. And that's going to be a bit of an in-depth one, but we'll cover it. Anyway, I think that's enough to get started with. So let me jump over to my screen. Wrong one. Bear with me. There we go. So here I am. This is Markbook as is open, and I'm going to make the screen full size rather than looking at my mug the whole time. What I've got here is the Markbook tool, and if you're not setting up as Markbooks, it'll look like this, but all this is just in the assignments tab. Every assignment has its assignment menu, and I can click into this button here, and I've got this reuse assignment, which is great for me because basically I could take this assignment, set it for one class, and then a week or two later, set it for another class. But this is my assignment list. This shows me my assignments. I'm sorry, I've just seen the question from Adrian Tate. Yes, and thank you, Lucy, for answering. I'm going to mute the questions for now, otherwise I'll just keep getting thrown. So I can click on here and it will open up that assignment. It'll allow me to reuse it. I can change the class that this goes to. As I say, this is my assignment list and only for me. If I close that down and go to the Markbooks tab instead. Now, by default, Markbooks are open for everybody in school. So I can go to view and I can look at all my colleagues' Markbooks. I wouldn't obviously do that unless I had a reason, but I could go into here if I was doing some cover work, especially right now if somebody was off sick, I could jump in. But there's the other aspect of using assignments. So this is Lucy's Markbook. She was telling me earlier she's sort of brilliant assignment in here for her English class, and I think I want to use it for mine. So I'm going to click on the drop-down menu, and I'm going to go to reuse assignment. And that was her class. I'll take her class out, and I'll add in my own class. Now, again, this is Quick Assign, so if this was linked to your MIS, this would actually pick up your classes and you wouldn't need to search. But that's it. I can now set exactly that same work that Lucy had set to her class, but for my class, and it really is that simple. And we've got a video explaining that and covering that in more detail. So that was the first thing we wanted to show you, that really quick way of reusing and sharing assignments. the next thing I mentioned there, and I promise I will give Claire a chance to speak at some point, but the next thing I mentioned there was the idea of preparing your resources in Frog as a site, but then pushing them out as homeworks. So this is a really rough example that I use when I'm demonstrating the potential for Frog, and it's a private peaceful lesson. So it's got all the resources that I'll be needing. It's a module. So I'm going to be going into this in a bit more detail. I've got all my PowerPoints ready to go, and I'll be using it for several different lessons. Then I've got a homeworks tab. And if I go over to the homeworks tab, I've then got some pre-prepared homeworks. So if I go on homework 1, I want the students to prepare a timeline of events for the book, Private Peaceful. I've got a picture of a timeline. It's still quite basic, but hopefully you get the idea. Jump to homework 2. I've got a quiz already all set up in context inside that module. So with the rest of the work around this book, I've also got the quiz and everything set. So when I'm ready to, I can go to share, assign page. And from here, what Frog does is opens up the quick assign. And if I quickly fill in this section, I'll show you the next bit. I can pop some different instructions in there. I'll set my due date as normal. I'll set my class. But all of the resources, any of the activities that you would expect to sort of add on the next tabs are actually already added because they were from that page. So I don't get to add those. I do still get my mark scheme and everything else. And so what Frog will do it will take a copy of this page and assign it out to the students. Now, this is great when you do it in this way in context. You're already going to be planning your homeworks, and if you and your colleagues are all teaching different classes with this, but on the same module, then you've got a quick and easy way of sharing that material in here. And it doesn't have to be as detailed or as complex as making a site for the whole thing. I've seen plenty of schools will have a department site and have a homeworks tab on there, and each homework will be a separate page in there. It's a great way as well if you're very comfortable creating these resources yourself and are actually wanting then to bring your NQTs on, in that you're taking some of their workload off. They've got a lot to do in the early days, and this way it's a great way of sharing those resources. In this example, we've even I've gone as far as embedding a video, and now I'm wanting the students to engage with a text activity. So that's if you like, the simple way of preparing a homework in advance. But I'm going to hand over to Claire now, and she's going to give me some directions on where to click. She's taken it a bit further when she's been working with schools. Isn't that right, Claire?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's probably quite a nice idea just to start with the PE department one, just very briefly, Graham. I'm sorry to muddle the tabs up there.
Oh, sorry.
I do apologise. It's just where it's an ideal point to start off from basically what you've been looking at with Private Peaceful. So this is an example. Again, it's very similar, but might put it in a bit more context for some colleagues. This is very much what a couple of our schools in London have been doing. And if you just want to click on the Key Stage 3 tab for me, Graham, this is a mock-up of a departmental area. So on here, we can see we've got all our links to our various units of study. And if you'd like to click on that first one, Graham, yep, that's brilliant. Okay, got a little bit of a preamble about what this particular unit might be all about. But if you then click on the homeworks tab, you can see there, perhaps just go for homework 1. That's lovely. We can see as a department, if you wanted to, you could actually create a specific model that you want staff to use. So on there, you've got your placeholder widgets, you've got the learning objectives. So I could copy and paste in whatever those learning objectives are. I've got a text activity on there, so the students will be able to complete the text activity. And again, I can include some resources there. And what's really nice about this is what Graham picked up on earlier. If I were to go and assign this or assign this page, it actually picks up the title of that page. So you could see straight away.
Let me do that properly.
So we can see here straight away, it's picked up the title of that. As a teacher, I don't need to do that. So if you are working through this model, you're literally, and the students will be aware they're going from week 1 to week 2 and so on. So it's one less task for me to have to do. And I've already got the pre-arranged model that in our department area, we've agreed upon to be able to push homework or learning activities out to children. Obviously, if I needed to tweak or change this model, I can do. But if it's going to make life easier for everybody, then this is one route that you could take, that you could use. So hopefully that's just reinforced what you've already said, Graham, on the private peaceful.
Yes, and I just thought, actually, you know what? I glossed over something there, Claire. So I thought I'll just jump in here when I
Yeah,
talk
sure, go
about
on.
activities. Within the widgets area, we've got the activities section. Now, these widgets are what you see when you're using QuickAssign and setting an activity. So, Claire was talking about the text activity widget. That's it there. File drop, which you may well have been using all over the place as a way of quickly being able to upload files, is actually the same file drop activity that's in QuickAssign. And it's the same for the code activity and the hotspots and all the other ones that are in. Oh, sorry, hotspot and the question widget are also in there, but all the other activities are the same that you would see in QuickAssign.
Brilliant. Okay, that's great, Graham. I mean, if you want to go on to the first one that we were going to go to, which was that's the one. Wonderful. Yep. Thank you very much. So this is an example. Actually, it came from a couple of questions that a few colleagues were asking me about trying to potentially make something that would be an independent piece of study. In other words, a homework that's specific for an individual, but trying to incorporate some collaborative elements within that, but it's still being a piece of homework, an assignment. So we've got at the top half of this page, just putting it in context, it's a particular piece of homework. I've got my unit objectives on here. There's a short video that the students can look through. And then we've got some learning activities, as Graham's already pointed out, with the widgets. So we've got, once this becomes live, then the students will get a text box that can actually type their answers into. So again, if they are limited at home as to what devices they might be able to use, this makes things an awful lot easier rather than everybody arguing over the one laptop. We've also got a couple of quizzes on there as well. So that's all the individual pieces of work. Now, wouldn't it be really nice if we could actually have some collaborative elements here as well? So the lower part of the page that Graham's just scrolled down to, I've got some collaborative widgets on there. We've got a poll widget, we've got a forum widget, and we've got a wall widget. Now, if I were to place these widgets on the assignment, then the children would not be able to collaborate with each other because it's a single copy of a page. What we've done here is we've actually embedded another page from a different site, and Graham's very kindly gone into edit mode, and you can actually see the other site that I've got is called Interactive Resources. So what will happen is the students can do those activities, because I've assigned this page, but incorporated in that are those collaborative elements. So the children can interact with the poll, they can respond to a couple of the points that I've put on the forum, or it might be responding to what I've put on the wall. And I can actually use those interactive elements as perhaps a starting activity when I do my next online lesson with those students. So I can really top and tail that learning experience and still allow the students to do some elements of collaboration, which I know a lot of them find difficult and they're missing, certainly at this current time with the lockdown going on. So if you just want to close the edit panel for me, Graham. That's great. So as you can see, top half of the page is what I would is the assignment element, and the lower part of the page is the collaborative element. And again, all you would need to do is go to assign the page. And a little bit like before, you'll see on that it inherits the name of that page. So I don't need to make any changes. And the students would then be able to complete the activities on there individually and collaborate with the rest of the group.
What I really like about this method, I was using this already, but a school introduced me to how they were using it, is that, there are times when setting some work for the students to do at home just doesn't feel appropriate. You need to know that they're engaging and following the learning, but there isn't an activity that suits what you've been talking about and covering. So why not add a forum and have the students collaborate and communicate and have that discussion, which demonstrates their understanding, helps cement it, but doesn't necessarily lead it in. And of course, the beauty about doing it this way is that there's nothing stopping you assigning that same forum the next week and the next week, because each thread can be built in. So you can constantly use this to underscore and really ensure that that learning's going on, while at the same time taking the pressure off you to come up with an activity to do. Instead, it could just be, I expect you to all contribute to the questions I'll be asking on the forum this week.
Yeah, that's great, Graham. I've got another school, I think one of the schools in Manchester, who use the forum to encourage the students. They'll each week they'll post an idea or an option around a certain piece of set text. And the expectation is that before we get together for the next lesson, everyone will have responded to that particular thread, or made some embellishments on that. So again, another way of getting the students to be able to interact, even though they are working remotely at the moment. And I think just the last one, Graham, unless you need to, if there's anything else you wanted to say on that one.
No, that was, yeah.
Okay, so this last one, it's a model that some of you may well have seen before, but again, it's thinking about that element of interaction, but also enabling the students to be able to pick up resources that they might need. I hold my hands up, all the credits go to the BBC because they did produce a fantastic series on BBC One a few Christmases ago. So a lot of the images and everything I've pulled from there, so I hold my hands up. But we can see here I can have a collaborative element where we may well be analysing different characters. So I can pose questions about certain characters, and again, the students can respond to those. And it's lovely because I can actually download the history on those walls. But the main point, which is Graham, which what Graham's going to click on, I think. Sorry, yes, go on, Graham. The main point is this is what I saw in action in a classroom, but there's no reason why you couldn't do this remotely as part of an online lesson where you're actually getting students to create something like perhaps it's storyboards, or it might be mind maps about what's going on, different characters interacting with each other. And actually the students then, using Frog Snap, would be able to upload what they've actually been working on. And again, I've now got this as a whole class teaching resource. You could have it as a peer review. So again, students could do some critique on each other's piece of work that they've uploaded, as Graham's just liked one there for us. And again, it was quite nice. I don't know if you can click on the cog function for me, Graham, on any of the images.
Oh.
And I think, or just double click on one of the images.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. There we go. And what you can do then is you can actually zoom in, full screen it, and you've actually then got a discussion point, which again, potentially you could use as an online lesson discussion point. So there's just a couple of different ways where we can really start to share what's on Frog in a slightly more dynamic way, but the students can also submit online during a lesson, and you've actually got those pieces of evidence being flagged up on that timeline.
So, should I jump on to the next one, Claire? Or
yeah. I think, have we got them all? Yep. So you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I can jump back.
No, that's fine.
So then the next stage, and this was actually something we were showing in Australia. So you might spot, or maybe it's later on. There's some guidance and advice. Not only can you assign the page, but you can also, as we were demonstrating there, there's the assign a site option. So you can take all of a site and you can create, in-depth multiple areas within that. Now I'm being asked a question, and Lucy's sort of flagging it up for me. So let me finish this, and then I'll come back round to that one. So we can assign a site in here, and it does exactly the same. It just packs it all up and shoves and shows it within Quick Assign, and I just don't need to worry about the activities or the resources. Because I'm taking an entire site this way, maybe that means, well, it does in fact mean I can then use some of the other tools in Frog. And the one I'm specifically talking about is the rules section. So I can click onto here and notice, imagine I was assigning this out and pushing this out to children. I know that their parents are also going to be logging in. I can set a rule on a page and give parents guidance as well. So if this was activities that we wanted the children to work through, then in fact, what I could do here is give parents that guidance so that the Y is probability. And as you can see here, actually, we've got that guidance written on. This was a probability lesson. And we're able to explain to parents what they need to do, how they can help their children understand this concept. So that's where you can start going, oh, we can really do something a bit more, a bit further. And especially with this remote learning where we are right now, the idea of being able to wrap it up in this way, I think is really powerful. And then all you do is go to share and assign site, as I said. Now, that was what we wanted to rattle through, and I'm sorry that we have gone through it all very quickly. Martin's asked a question about the forums, which is, can you prevent students from making a new thread? You use the forums a lot, but with Ofsted looking for opportunities to collaborate, it would be good to have a class forum, but you want to set the topics. I'd suggest, and Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, but in that case, if you don't want the students making new threads, I'd suggest using the wall widget instead, which is in effect a single thread from a forum. So
I totally agree with you there, Graham.
I'll just do it on this page. If anyone, by the way, wants a tour of any of the resources in depth, we'll be showing our email addresses at the end. You can drop us a line. If I go to communication, instead of dragging in a forum, I drag in a wall widget. Now, a wall widget, as I say, is a single thread from a forum. It's all the same mechanics. And I can now pose a question. Here's one I've written earlier. How well do you understand the challenges? When I come out of it, all students can do is reply to that message. That's it. So that's a really handy and quick way for the students to do that, and you have that forum interaction, but you're not getting them going off on tangents. They've got that one space. Now, if you are concerned, if you don't want the students sort of saying anything else, and the forum has this as well, is you've got post require approval. So when they post a message, it won't appear for anybody until that time. Now, if I then jump down, I was working with George Bly from Greenshaw yesterday, and we realized that with show message when the posts are not approved is a way where you can have a collaborative space where all the students can ask questions, but they only see their own posts. They don't get to see everybody else's posts. So that's what that checkbox is doing. So that was that question. Lucy's asking on the forums for another, but I did have one submitted beforehand, which was from Rob Jeffries from St Andrews. And he was asking, can you show us where students will see their marks and feedback from an assignment? Is there an easier way rather than having to go through the closed assignments list? Almost like Markbook for Students view. I think a Markbook for Students is something it's something I'm really keen for us to do. Showing that from a student's point of view is a little awkward. Let me log in as a student, and I'll show you one thing that we can do. But to be honest, I suspect from what you've said, you're already there. These are all fictitious names, by the way. This is our dummy account. So I'm not worried about you seeing any of the names there. Let's just jump in. So this is the student view, and you're quite right. We've got the home learning calendar in here. Any marking that happens, Abby has submitted homework and it's been marked. So she can open it from the home learning calendar and see the works there. She's also been sent a notification, so that will appear in the My Notifications and in her timeline that marks happened. We've got a frog code widget where you could limit those notifications down to just the ones you want. As you quite rightly said, if I go into assignments, I click on the close tab to see it. But I don't have to leave assignments up in Quick Launch. If I jump back, I'll be thrown out now, won't I? Let me jump onto this platform. I've got another platform here where I'm still an admin. And if I go into this homework tab, if I go to insert a frog app, I'm going to take this slowly and I will be here to answer questions and go into detail. But if I choose embed in site, I can then link in assignments. And even I'm not going to come out of the edit mode because it won't show up because I'm logged in as an admin. But for a student, it does the equivalent of what I was just doing there. If I go to, I've lost where I was with it.
Keep going.
Yeah, there we go. If I go to Quick Launch and see assignments, it takes that view and puts it directly in a page. Now, it does start on the Open tab. There's no way right now we can get the Assignments app to start on the Close tab, but there are other variations. And I'll leave it with one last thing to show you on here, one other possibility. Just discard all my changes. A long time ago, one of our developers created some HTML code, and it's posted on the forums, that allows you to display the latest assignments for that logged in student. And if I click edit, right now it's set for open, but I know that if I click edit and go into it, actually all I would have to do is change that to closed. I could change that number from 5 to 15, and it would show me my last 15 closed assignments. So I'd be able to have access to the marks that way. So that's another way of doing it. So you've got the assignment calendar where the homework will still remain that you can click on and view there. You can embed the assignments app in a page to make it easier for the students to navigate to. It sends it to their notifications, and there's some HTML we could put onto your site which would show you the latest closed assignments. So we don't have that Markbook view, but we come pretty close with all the different variations. Hopefully that answers your question, Rob. There. Now, while we're talking, I'm going to bring up the last slide on here. We're not going to go anywhere, though. We've got plenty, we'll all be staying on to answer any questions you've got. If not, there are our contact details. There are video guides on the community. If you go to frogeducation.com/community/training, and I'll jump back and show you, you get all of our video guides. And if I go to homework within here, and a lot of what we've covered was all about, setting quick homework. That was in the last webinar, and we've got more webinars coming up where we'll be going into the marking side of it. But we've broken these down into really short, quick tutorials that you can have listed here. Now, Adrian has asked a really interesting question, the hot topic question at the moment. How can you tell if a student has uploaded work, maybe not handed it in yet? I'm not sure you can. Can you, Clay?
I don't think you can. I think I can see where Adrian's coming from. But it would. I mean, I know we've had similar conversations between us over the course of the last couple of days. So it wouldn't necessarily be. I'm not sure, Adrian, if it's a case of it's an empty piece of assignment. What's Adrian put there?
Yes, so right now the only way to see is you've got to click on a student, see what they've actually handed in there. Now, the assignment reporting solution that we've made available, and we talked about in the webinar just before Christmas, you can run a report on a student to see if they're doing that on a regular basis. But for a teacher, you do kind of need to work through that Markbook set of cells. And so that looks something like, going to take a moment. Oh, I'm logged out, aren't I? I'm logged in as a student, so I'm going to have to log out and log in. So you do have to work through, but it is like a spreadsheet. It is pretty quick to go through. I know it's something that you would like an indicator for, and I believe that's been captured as a request for change on our ideas portal. Martin's asking about the ability to change documents and links when you reuse. We have looked at that. Let me just get logged back in. We have looked at that, and it is going to be quite a big job to rewrite the assignment system to allow you to do that. Currently, you can alter the instructions on the front page, which does have a hyperlink feature in it. If I go to one of the homeworks I've got assigned, I can edit my assignment, and while I can't change the resources, I do have that hyperlink. So if I forget one thing, that's probably the quickest way to add it back in. If I want to make a bigger change, though, then I'm going to have to close the assignment, delete it, and set a new one in its place. So now Lucy's asking about, can we just show the assignment?
Just one thought going on from the examples that we're looking at, which might work for Martin, would be the nested page option, which is pointing at resources. So that might be a way of getting around that, Martin. So it's just making sure that you've got a nested page at the bottom of your assigned page. And then from there, from that site, you can actually change those resources. So that might be a route around.
Yes, especially I think if you are going down that route, preparing homeworks in advance, having that nested page just there, should you ever need it, is quite handy. Um, Now, Lucy's saying, can we just show the reuse assignment function too, and how you would amend this, and as it appears in the teacher's markbook? So I'm logged in here. I'll go to read now. I'll do it from the markbook. And we'll pick imagery in Jekyll and Hyde, and I'll reuse this assignment, and I'll set it for one of. Now, I'll be doing this, and I'm going to set it for. Oh, I'm being told I've already covered it, but yeah, no point, no harm in sort of re-going over it. I select my new class, I take the old one off. We're also sending it to Harry. We don't need to resend it to Harry there, but I hit assign. So again, I can change the instructions on here. It will appear as if it's been assigned from me, but the activities and the resources have all been preset when it was originally assigned. Now, have we made sure we've covered everything that everybody's asking? Martin's asking for a like button or agree button on the forums. I quite like that idea, but we don't have anything directly. But if I do Windows dot, oh, wrong screen, let's try again. Let me see, will it bring up? Yes, it will. If I do Windows dot on my Windows keyboard, and I believe it's very similar on a Mac, but I'd have to look it up, I have all these symbols. So if I like something, I can copy that one. I think just clicking on it is what copies it. And then let's just pop it into reuse assignment just so you can see, and I can paste it in. No, I can't. So I'm out of practice, but Windows Dock will bring up a series of emojis you can absolutely paste in.
I think you can use a keyboard shortcut as well, Graham. I think when we were talking about this before, where you can like something and you can use the keyboard shortcut for heart, and that should drop it in as well.
Oh, great. And it does say, again, I can just do that anywhere. So sorry, what was that one, Claire? That was Windows?
Keyboard shortcut you can do on Windows, which will bring up a heart icon. So that would be your equivalent.
You're not sure what that is. We'll find that answer out and we'll post it somewhere so you can get it. Rob Jeffrey is asking, how does the average mark calculate? And can it display criteria instead of a percentage? Rob, we really considered that. We had debates in the office throughout the development of Markbook. We erred against it. So we'd had some members of staff look into the whole concept of grades and weighting and things like that, and explain that all we can do is calculate the percentages, because all of these different mark schemes have a percentage in the background. We can present that as an answer to you for what it is. It works out. It adds up the scores that you've had. It's the marks you've had. It ignores the ones you've not been marked for. It calculates that as an average mark. Because you can't do weighting on our assignments, we didn't want people mistaking Frog for a grade predictor. It does give you an indicator of what they're doing, but ultimately a filler homework, an underscoring homework for just making sure you've understood something, obviously isn't going to have as much weight as potentially putting in mock exam results. So we didn't want to lead anybody down into a false assumption that that was giving you a grade prediction. So that's why it's just a percentage. Now, I mentioned there, you also said, how does it calculate? If there's something you don't want in that calculation, let's have a look at this one here. Private Peaceful Homework 3. I can go up to the action cog and choose Manage Markbook. I can uncheck it from here and keep an eye on that 55.2%. Let me make this large so you can see it. I'll cancel that and do it again. Action cog, Manage Markbook, and I'll uncheck it from there and click Save. It reloads the Markbook, and now it's only got that first mark, silver, which happens to be set to 66%. That assignment is still there, it's just hidden. And then we can bring it back, and it gives me that recalculation. Now, Rob's asking, why can't you uncheck some assignments from Markbook? My guess for those would be that it was a shared assignment. That is, I'd have to look into it on a case by case, but my guess would be that somebody has set work to all of year 7. so you can't hide it from your class's Markbook. But as I say, I'd have to look at that case by case. If you want to drop me an email, we can look at that together. Now, Adrian's asking, how do you add an assignment to a Markbook? It's really simple. Provided you've set that work for your class, for that subject, it will automatically appear in that Markbook. If you don't have a Markbook set up for your class and that subject, and from here I can click on this button and I've got create and add to Markbook. But either way, no matter how I create the Markbook, it will pull in all of the assignments for any student in that class, in that Markbook, in that subject. And the reason I say any student in that class is because if you get students moving around from classes, it will pull in all of their assignments from their previous class, just for them, just as a separate column in there, so you can see that information. So hopefully that answers your question as well. Oh, now Adrian is asking, how do you re-add assignments to Markbook? Well, it's through the Manage Markbook again, and you just check the box and it reappears. Now, occasionally you'll get it so that you're wondering why an assignment isn't showing up. And honestly, 90% of the time, if not more, it's because you've not given it a subject. So you can go in, you can click Edit, and you can add its subject there, and it will appear. So, we thought this would be a 20-minute webinar. I was starting to think we were overrunning, and then we've answered some of your questions, and we've now been going 40 minutes. We'll still be here. We will still continue to answer any questions for a bit longer. And if you want to, you can reach out to us on email if you've got any further questions. I'm guessing, given the fact that no new questions are coming through, that we've answered your immediate ones. So thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.